Hi, and welcome to Are You Really Strangers, a podcast all about opening up and telling stories that we keep bottled in ourselves. I'm your host, Sabir Radigo, and this week we ask students to come in anonymously and tell us stories about their experiences with high school relationships and the positives and the negatives of them.
In my opinion, I think that the positives are you have someone to go through high school with and all of the field trips and all of the fun stuff. You have someone there with you to enjoy it all with. I also think that another positive can be that you're spending time with the person you love. So even if you don't end up with that person, later on you can look back and be like, oh, that was my high school relationship, and that's always fun to look back at. As far as negatives, I feel like sometimes they can hold you back, or if they don't want to participate in something, you feel almost obligated not to participate too, or if they don't want you to do something or want you to stay back and hold back to your fullest potential, then you tend to stay back for them when that isn't good. You should always do the best you can do and be your best self. So I feel like they may just hold you back, or maybe breakups and fights and cheating and all that stuff may happen during your relationship, and if it does, it can stress you out, cause sadness during your high school years, and no one should go through that, and it can even just cause you to do worse in school and just all areas of high school.
In your opinion, what was your favorite positive about being in a relationship?
My favorite positive about being in a relationship was, well, I always had a lot of homework, and me and my boyfriend had similar classes, so we would always study together, and whatever he picked up in class, he would tell me. Whatever I picked up, I would tell him. So we had a great bond in that, and we would just succeed together. So I would do better, he would do better, and it just created a good relationship and a good friendship as well.
With positives also comes negatives. So what was a negative that you really didn't enjoy in the relationship?
I feel like everything was almost a competition. I feel like if I did too good on something or he did worse, then it was I had to feel bad for it. Or, vice versa too. If he did good on something and I did worse, I would feel we both studied together and I did worse. So it was kind of just we're trying to bring each other up, but we're obviously not both going to do amazing all the time. So it would tend to make one of us sad sometimes.
What is an advice that you would give somebody that's currently in a high school relationship?
I would probably say to be in the relationship and be happy with the person, and try and just not get your relationship too much into your personal life, because if you do, it can affect how you're doing in school. And if you guys have what I had and had competition between one another, it can just bring down both of your self-esteems. So maybe just keeping a fine line between school and a relationship, and your personal life and the relationship will help you be happy in your own life as well as in your relationship.
For sure, one of the positives of having a high school relationship would be that you always have a partner by your side to support you no matter what, because high school is usually a hard time for teenagers when they're growing up. They're going through adult, puberty and stuff like that, and they have to deal with school, family issues. And for sure, one of the negatives would be that it's not guaranteed that you're going to be with that person forever, whether you may think so or not. At a young age, it usually doesn't end up like that, and you're going to have to deal with the sorrow and the sadness of having to let go of that person that you probably will always remember but never meet again in your life.
With your high school relationship, what was your favorite positive about it?
My favorite positive is that it feels like you have a soulmate. It's your best friend no matter what. You don't have to turn to anyone else. And it's you got an additional person in your family that you could trust. And they'll always love you. Well, maybe not always, but they're always there for you.
In your relationship, was there a constant negative that kept arising?
For sure, yeah. There'll always be differences between us, or arguments or fights. But that's not just the relationships. That's almost people, to people, friends. It's pretty normal.
And what advice would you give somebody currently in a high school relationship?
The advice I would give is to definitely think about it. Be smart. Don't make any stupid decisions. If you think it's going to affect you in a negative way in the future, then think about it, because it might not be the best choice for you. But if you really know what you're doing, you know what you're getting yourself into, then go for it. Shoot your shot and don't do anything stupid.
Okay, so I was in one a few months ago, and I have to say that there's a lot of positives, but with that also comes negatives, because everything is a balance, and easily high school relationships can become an imbalance. And like a negative of it is that you lose track of school and you like to prioritize other things like your relationship more than your friends or your schoolwork or your family, and you just like lose track of things. But a positive is also that you know what you want like later on, and like you learn from it, and you know how to like love someone and show love in like a way that you wouldn't normally with like your friends. It's like a different aspect of love that you show.
Is there like a key to keeping a relationship going? Like, what, in your opinion, it was your key to keeping the relationship going?
Communication. And even though like I struggled with that a lot because I don't know how to talk about my feelings, like communication is always like, because you always, even if you're not on the same page, when you talk about it, you can be on the same page when you talk about it.
And with positives also comes negatives. So what was something that you felt was negative about the relationship?
When we argued, we just like, we wouldn't come to a middle ground. So we just like argued for like, I guess for fun, to not end it.
Yeah, because you guys have strong personalities.
Yeah, ego.
Yeah. And what advice would you give somebody that's in a relationship that you felt like was something that you could have improved in?
Try not to lose yourself in the relationship. And even though you are in a relationship and you want to put in effort into it, don't make it your whole life and still have a life outside of it and know who you are.
Okay, so something positive in a high school relationship is, since you're both around like the same age, you can and be with the person and be comfortable, you know, like you're with them and they know what you feel, like what you like, they know as much as you do. They don't know like past you or whatever, like they try to not manipulate you. Well, it depends, you know, obviously, like the age differences, but yeah, that's one. That would be like a positive thing. And negative thing about high school relationships is that there is a very high amount of arguing, and this, me personally, you know, it's even though you guys are the same age and whatever, and you love the person, they still argue with you a lot about very small details. It's something that doesn't even matter. And yet they bring it up and then crazy stuff happens, you know.
What is some advice that you give somebody that's in a high school relationship currently?
Don't get too attached. Anything can happen. If you're too attached and you truly have deep feelings for that person, you can, you could get heartbroken if they leave you, and that's not, you're too young for a heartbreak, you know. So that's like my father taught me as the advice of, you know, don't fall in love too young. So just keep things very simple. Don't over compromise with the person. Don't be too attached, because bad stuff can happen. Because life, you know, they could change from one day to another. They could lose feelings. They just leave, and you're just left alone, you know.
Some of the positives for me is always like, I always feel like I have a best friend. I always have someone to hang out with. And especially when you're in a healthy relationship, like it can be really good. You learn a lot of things from being around a person. And I've learned a lot of skills that I don't think I would have not being in a relationship. And overall, I think it has to do with how healthy your relationship is. Like I'm in a super healthy relationship. We've been dating for almost a year. And I think the positives always outweigh the benefits when you're willing to communicate. And as for the negatives, I think sometimes it's trying to find your balance. And balance is very difficult, but it really is an essential skill. And honestly, after I nailed the balance, after a couple of months, like it becomes such an easy process just to be with someone that you love. And overall, I feel like that negative is just something that you'll come and it'll go. But it's about learning from those mistakes and how to be with each other, how to handle your friends, how to handle your school. But overall, I think that the negative isn't really worth anything.
In your high school relationship, what has been your favorite positive about it?
My favorite positive, like I stated earlier, was feeling like I always have a best friend. Like my boyfriend and I, like we're very similar people, but we're also not very similar people at all. Like I think it's, you know, having a reflection of someone that you want to look up to and you want to be like, and also serving as the same thing for them.
And for somebody in a high school relationship, what advice would you give them?
The advice I would give someone for a high school relationship is communicating. I know it's like such a basic thing, but also just finding the right person. Because especially when we're in high school, we're young, like we might just want attention from someone, or we might fall in love for someone who's just not really worth it. But I think when you find the right person, communicating becomes such an easy thing. Like it's always you two against the problem, and I think that's important in a high school relationship as we head into adulthood. Like, it's important always.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Hope you understand that everybody has a different experience with high school relationships. It may be positive or it may be negative. No matter what, it wasn't meant to change you. It was just meant to help you understand better what a high school relationship should be about. And really, are we strangers and we all go through the same experiences?